I married Lucas out of pure mutual hatred. We couldn't stand each other, but we were forced into a political marriage. Aside from the weekly routine of marital duties and public appearances, we barely spoke in private. I thought our bland, distant marriage would continue this way indefinitely, until the day it was revealed that I wasn't the real heiress. The true young lady was someone else. I was just a fraud. After thinking it through, I had my lawyer draft a divorce agreement and sent it to Lucas, who was away on a business trip. Chapter 1. Honestly, I felt relieved. Lucas and I had no emotional entanglements. We never truly shared our lives or assets. That's why the divorce agreement was so easy to write. Black and white on paper, every clause neatly listed, every term precisely written. Just like our 3-year marriage. Clear-cut, distant, devoid of warmth. After glancing over it, I sent Lucas the digital version. Find a time to finalize the paperwork. After hitting send, I felt an inexplicable exhaustion. Life really is absurd sometimes. When I first married Lucas, I had a feeling we might one day divorce. But I never imagined it would be for something this dramatic. Because I'm not actually a rich heiress. Years ago, my parents went to a villa in the mountains for vacation. A sudden landslide struck, and in the chaos of the emergency rescue, people were temporarily relocated to a welfare home. My mother, traumatized and in early labor, gave birth prematurely, and in the chaos, the babies were mixed up. They took me home. A child meant to be abandoned. Just a few days ago, Alice showed up. She had a face that resembled my mother's. She shared the same rare allergies. A DNA test confirmed it. She is my parents' biological daughter. And I was a discarded child who had been living a lie for 25 years. Enjoying a privileged life that never belonged to me. Even marrying the man meant for her. I found out only yesterday. I assume Lucas already knows. I glanced at my phone. No reply from him. He's probably still busy. He's been away for a week now. There was a major issue with one of the projects. Very complicated. Even if he doesn't reply, I can already imagine his response. Something calm, measured, indifferent. Okay. That's just how he is. Nothing ever seems to affect him, unless it's work. Not me. Not this home. Maybe Alice will. I saw her for the first time yesterday at home. She was radiant. Sitting beside my mother, poised and confident, graceful in every gesture. A jewel, even when fallen in the dust, still shines. Unlike me. No matter how hard I tried these past 20-some years, I was never truly accepted. Maybe it's for the best. Everyone returning to their rightful place. As it should be. Chapter 2. The house I'm living in now was a wedding gift. Lucas bought it specifically for our marriage. Since we're getting divorced soon, I really shouldn't stay here anymore. Technically, I own a few properties, but they were all gifted either by my family or Lucas. They were never truly mine, and I don't intend to live in any of them. I left the house, planning to rent a place near my studio as a temporary solution. Thankfully, I'd already left the family business last year and started my own company. I no longer rely on them. I have a stable income and decent savings now. I still remember how fiercely my family opposed me when I said I wanted to leave the group and start an MCN company. In the end, the only one who supported me was Lucas. My family has always disliked it when I do things outside of their plans. They said everything they'd done to raise me over the past 20-something years wasn't so I could go out and show my face in public or mingle with the wrong kind of people. That day, I sat there silently after being scolded, zoning out on the couch. I didn't even notice when Lucas came home. Not until he turned on the light and sat down beside me. "How's your MCN studio going?" He had overheard a few of my calls with potential investors before, but this was the first time he actually asked. I shook my head. Probably won't happen. My family's disapproval had scared off a few investors who were originally interested. This was their usual tactic, to force me to back down. Lucas didn't say anything at first. He just asked, "But do you still want to do it?" All my life, people have asked me should I, could I, would I. This was the first time someone asked me if I wanted to. I was caught off guard. Lucas has never been the patient type, but that day he quietly sat there as I hesitated and fumbled until I finally gave a small nod. He stood up and tossed 2 calm sentences over his shoulder. "Then do it." I'll take care of the investment. If it fails, I'll cover the loss. He's always been direct, but those words were a shot of adrenaline to the lost and unsure version of me. Looking back now, if it weren't for Lucas's support, I'd probably be in a far worse position today. Chapter 3. By the time I finished checking out the apartment, it was already getting dark, but at least it was settled. I couldn't move in tonight, so I planned to pack a bag and stay at a hotel for the night. Back home, Lucas still hadn't replied. Maybe he hadn't seen the message, or maybe he had and simply chose not to respond. To him, this probably wasn't a big deal, maybe not even worth as much attention as a meeting. That thought brought a sudden wave of bitterness. Back when I married him, it was because my mother, more accurately my adoptive mother, forced me into it with the engagement as leverage. And yet, after 3 years of marriage, I had somehow grown attached to Lucas. Dependent, even. Life always plays these tricks, unpredictable and cruel. I shook off the melancholy and began packing. Aside from a few sets of clothes, I didn't take anything else. There were lots of handbags and jewelry in the house, most of them gifts from Lucas. I rarely wore them. I was never that into luxury, but Lucas often brought things back from auctions and charity events. Over time, they filled several cabinets. Truthfully, he hadn't treated me badly. In the first year of our marriage, I once went to inspect one of our factories and got caught in a massive snowstorm. We were stranded in a small town, not much to go around but enough to survive. All the roads were blocked. I never knew how Lucas managed to get there. He showed up in a down jacket, snow clinging to his eyelashes, pant legs soaked and frozen. He looked absolutely disheveled, yet still carried himself with quiet dignity. He asked if I was okay. I had been trapped there for 4 days. Not a single call from my family. Only Lucas found a way to come for me. Sometimes I wondered, did Lucas maybe care for me a little? Especially during our occasional moments of intimacy, his cold, clear eyes would darken with desire, filled with emotion. But outside of that, he was distant, indifferent. His tone always flat and formal. I must have imagined it all. Lucas couldn't possibly like me. If he was ever kind, it was probably out of obligation. After finishing in the bedroom, I went to the living room to get my documents. As I opened a drawer, the front door creaked open. Lucas was back. Chapter 4. I glanced at the time, 10:30 p.m. Lucas usually avoided traveling at night unless something urgent was going on. Now he stood at the entryway, fatigue shadowing his face. There was something heavy in his eyes. He must have found out. I suddenly felt awkward and looked away, trying to make small talk. "You're back. Did you eat?" Lucas gave a nonchalant hum in response. He avoided my gaze, changed his shoes, and took off his coat. I didn't know how to face him, so I slipped back into the bedroom. It wasn't until I saw the suitcase that I remembered. I hadn't grabbed my ID. I turned around to get it and walked right into Lucas. He glanced down at the suitcase. "Where are you going?" I thought he was asking where I'd be staying tonight, so I answered. "I'll just stay at a hotel for now." Lucas nodded, walked past me, opened the wardrobe, and started packing 2 sets of clothes into my suitcase. I froze. He looked completely natural as he said, "Didn't you say you were tired of this place? Let's stay at a hotel for a change of scenery." He said it so matter-of-factly, but for some reason, my face flushed. I mumbled a denial. That's not what I meant. At that moment, I wondered, had he even seen the message? The heat on my cheeks faded fast. I took out the clothes he'd packed and said, "Lucas, check your WeChat. I sent you something." He seemed to dig in out of pure stubbornness, putting the clothes back in the suitcase. "What is it?" I didn't get anything. Didn't get it? But I clearly sent it. Could it have failed to deliver? I pulled out my phone to check, but before I could unlock it, he snatched it away. Then he said my name. "Elena. I don't want to read messages. I'm standing right in front of you. Whatever it is, tell me face to face." I froze. Face to face. Tell him what? That we're getting divorced. That I'm a fraud. That the woman he was supposed to marry isn't me. That now, finally, he doesn't have to stay tangled up with someone he doesn't even like. The words sat like a stone in my chest, heavy, painful. But even if I avoided it now, the truth would have to come out eventually. I hesitated, then finally gathered the courage to speak. Actually, But Lucas's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and walked out to take the call. I stood there, empty and powerless. I had caught a glimpse of the caller ID. It was my mother. Chapter 5. I knew exactly what that phone call was about. Just like the other day at home, her face calm and composed, she told me that the family's business ties with Lucas's couldn't be broken. Marriage was the most effective way to maintain that relationship. And the person in that marriage had to be the real daughter of the family. In other words, not someone like me, a fake. Otherwise, the union would be meaningless. For the first time, a flicker of guilt appeared on her elegant face. She said she shouldn't have forced me to marry Lucas, knowing full well I didn't like him. That now, I no longer needed to compromise in a marriage, I was free to choose my partner. Her words sounded full of care and understanding. But between the lines, every sentence drew a line between us. Honestly, she didn't have to. I wouldn't take a single thing that wasn't mine. I wouldn't stay a second longer in a home that wasn't mine. While Lucas was still on the call, I quickly zipped up my suitcase and headed toward the door. I didn't realize Lucas was standing right there in the entryway. He usually took calls in his study, but today he was casually leaning against the cabinet near the entrance. A few buttons of his collar were undone and his brows were slightly furrowed. He looked irritated. Sensing movement, he looked over and met my gaze. He stood upright, relaxed his brows, and spoke coldly into the phone. "That's all for now." Then he hung up. His eyes fell on my suitcase. He raised an eyebrow. "Have you picked a hotel yet?" I didn't respond. I tried to walk past with my suitcase, but he pulled me back. "Did you pack my clothes?" I said nothing. He let out a sarcastic laugh. "Elena, want to guess whether I'll let you walk out that door today?" Even if he hadn't read my message earlier, that phone call must have made everything clear. Then what was this? I gripped the suitcase handle tightly, trying to keep my voice calm. "Lucas, let's get a divorce. I'm just a fake. Your real marriage partner isn't me." 2 simple sentences, but they took everything out of me. I couldn't stay a second longer. I pushed the suitcase, but it didn't budge. Lucas gripped my waist tightly, his voice low and laced with anger. "What are you trying to say? That you're not the real Elena? Who's the one that's been married to me for 3 years? Who's been sleeping in my bed?" I stayed silent, clutching the hem of my dress. He grabbed my chin and forced me to look at him. His eyes were burning with fury. "And now? The one standing in front of me, isn't that you? Say something." My throat burned too much to speak. I could only nod. But as soon as I moved, the tears I had been holding in spilled over. Lucas reached up to wipe them away. His fingers were warm as they brushed my skin, and somehow that only made me cry harder. He sighed. "What are you crying for? I came back, didn't I?" Once I had calmed down, Lucas carried me back to the bedroom, dragged me into the shower with him, and finally tucked me under the covers and pulled me into his arms. I still didn't understand what he meant. Even if I was the one married to him these past 3 years, this marriage was never meant to be mine. I peeked out of the blanket, wanting to ask, but he glanced at me, turned off the light, and said coldly, "Sleep." I didn't dare press him further and quietly retreated under the covers, closing my eyes. Chapter 6. When I woke the next morning, Lucas wasn't in the bedroom. I figured he'd already left for work, but when I stepped out, I saw him in the living room reading. Seeing me, he got up and went to the kitchen to bring out breakfast. "Freshen up a bit. The stylist will be here soon." I blinked. "What for?" Lucas glanced at me. "Alice's welcome back banquet is tonight. You're coming with me." I lowered my head and said nothing. A banquet for the real daughter, and me, the fake. What kind of joke was that? Besides, no one had told me about it. Clearly, I wasn't welcome. I looked at Lucas and opened my mouth, but he cut me off. "No." I set my bread down and murmured, "I don't want to go." Lucas was silent for a moment. Then he took a sip of coffee. "You're my wife. If I show up alone, people will think we're really divorced. Is that what you want?" Lucas was always smooth with words, while I could never argue well. In the end, under his watchful eye, I got my hair done, changed into a new outfit, and left the house with him. Alice's welcome back banquet was lavish. Nearly every socialite in Jung City showed up. When Lucas entered with his arm around me, all eyes turned toward us, full of curiosity and speculation. Only my former parents had a brief flicker of stiffness in their expressions. But just for a moment. They quickly recovered and came over enthusiastically. My mother grabbed my hand and smiled affectionately. "You silly girl, why haven't you come home lately?" I calmly pulled my hand back without reacting. During the banquet, Lucas led me around for a lap, then was called away by someone. Before leaving, he reminded me to wait for him to go home together. I've never liked these social occasions, so I wandered into the garden alone. Just as I sat down, my mother appeared, holding a blanket in her hands. She draped it over my shoulders and sat beside me with a smile. "It's windy outside. Don't catch a cold." I knew she wouldn't waste her time on small talk. I waited in silence for the real conversation to begin. She sighed and slowly said, "Elena, Alice coming back won't affect you much. Our family doesn't mind raising another daughter. You can still access our resources and connections. But the marriage contract is an exception. That engagement was arranged between our family and the Lucases. It was meant to secure future business collaboration. It's very important to us. You've been married for 3 years. Lucas has treated you decently, but there was never deep affection. If it weren't for the engagement, the two of you wouldn't even have crossed paths. You have no children. And now that you're not our biological daughter, have you thought about whether Lucas will still treat you the same? Can you really shoulder the responsibility of linking the two families? Alice is different. She's more outgoing. She'll get along better with Lucas. And honestly, the engagement was meant for her in the first place. She's more suitable. Your father and I think you're still too immature. We hope you'll consider studying abroad to gain perspective. When you return, we'll give you 5% of the family shares. You'll still be our daughter." The moon hung overhead, half obscured by clouds. The night was quiet. I listened to it all silently and stayed quiet for a long time. Maybe I'd just heard this kind of talk too many times. It no longer hurt like it used to. In fact, I felt oddly calm. Growing up, I'd received little affirmation in this household. When I did well, they demanded I do even better next time. When I failed, I was made to train day and night until I succeeded. If this had been me from the past, I might have been devastated again thinking I wasn't good enough, never living up to their expectations. But ever since I married and left the family, living without their interference, I've started to change. Their approval no longer feels that important. I stood up and bowed deeply to her. "Madam, I'm truly grateful for the years you spent raising me. I have no way to repay you, but if you're willing, I can reimburse every cent and ounce of effort you invested in me. As for my marriage to Lucas's, yes, I benefited from the family connection. I can't deny that. Since I'm not your daughter, I'll step away from this engagement. I'll find the right time to talk to Lucas and return the marriage to your family. But for the rest of your conditions, I'm sorry, I can't agree. I'm no longer your daughter. From now on, I will not accept any direction from you about how I should live my life." With that, I turned and left. Chapter 7. After leaving the garden, I wiped away my tears and took a moment in the corner to calm down before re-entering the banquet hall. I wanted to go home but didn't see Lucas in the hall. Eventually, I found him on the second-floor terrace. Even from halfway down the corridor, I could clearly see that the person beside him was Alice. They stood by the railing chatting, Lucas wearing a soft expression and a faint smile on his lips. Alice, animated and expressive, was telling some story with vivid gestures. From a distance, they looked like a perfect match. I suddenly thought of what Madame had said. Compared to me, Alice would get along with Lucas better. If the engagement had been hers, she'd probably have handled it much better than I ever did. For some reason, every time I saw Alice, I could feel the vibrant energy radiating off her. She had that kind of presence that naturally drew everyone's attention. Someone like Alice, so radiant, it would be impossible not to fall for her. Unlike me, the one who was always overlooked. Neither clever nor likable. 3 years of marriage and still Lucas never fell for me. I didn't interrupt. Instead, I turned around and left the banquet. The evening wind had picked up, cool against my skin. This was a villa district. Getting a cab wasn't easy. I lowered my head and walked alone. I forced myself not to think about it, but the image kept flashing through my mind, Lucas's gentle expression, one I rarely ever saw directed at me. So he really doesn't like me. After walking a while, I suddenly heard someone calling my name. At first, I thought I was imagining it, until hurried footsteps closed in behind me and I was pulled into a familiar embrace. Lucas's voice was cold. "Didn't I tell you to wait for me? Where are you going off to on your own?" Most of the time, I was obedient and silent around Lucas. But suddenly, I snapped. I pushed him away. "It's none of your business." Lucas's face darkened even more. He grabbed me tightly, one hand pinching my chin and forcing me to look up. "If it's not my business, then whose is it?" "Elena, I'm your husband." I kept struggling, pounding on him with my fists. Not for much longer. Before I could finish, Lucas pressed down and kissed me hard, not even a kiss really, but a bite. So hard that tears sprang from my eyes. His gaze was fierce and burning. "Swallow those ugly words." Then he threw me over his shoulder and carried me back. We didn't stay at the banquet. We drove straight home. When the car pulled into the yard, Lucas didn't even let me walk, he picked me up directly. He placed me on the sofa, brought a hot towel and the first aid kit. Only when I saw the blood on the back of my heel did I finally feel the pain. The heel had been rubbed raw by the shoe, blistered and broken. Lucas frowned, impatient. "When did you get these shoes?" "My feet aren't a standard size. Ready-made shoes always hurt." After we got married, Lucas had all my shoes custom-made so they rarely caused blisters. But today, when styling my outfit, the stylist said this pair matched best, so I wore them. They were a birthday gift, from Madam. Lucas paused while applying the ointment and said softly, "If they don't fit, don't wear them. If you like the style, I'll have a pair made to fit you next time." I didn't reply. My nose stung. Sometimes, I really couldn't understand, if he didn't like me, why was he being so kind? He already knew I was a fake, yet he still pretended everything was normal. What, exactly, did that mean? I pulled my foot away and said quietly, "You don't need to be nice to me. We're getting divorced anyway." Lucas had just packed up the medical kit. At my words, he slammed it on the coffee table, bang. "Elena, is that all you can ever say to me? Divorce, divorce, anything else? Can't I hear even one kind word from you? So what if you're not their biological daughter? Since all this started, have you ever asked how I feel? Do you hate me that much that you keep pushing me away? Do you even have a heart?" He said all this in one breath, then slammed the door and left, leaving me sitting there completely stunned. Chapter 8. After Lucas left, the room fell silent again. I hugged my knees, burying my face in them, completely drained. I messed up again. Sometimes I really feel like I'm just a terrible person. That's why everything always ends up in a mess. Why can't I be like Alice, who wins everyone over the moment she appears? I've worked so hard all my life. So why am I never good enough? Why is it so hard for someone to like me? I don't know how long I sat there like that, but eventually I heard the door unlocking. Lucas had come back, holding a bowl of small wontons in his hand. I stared at him blankly, my voice hoarse beyond recognition. "You left, didn't you?" Lucas walked toward me, sounding a bit annoyed. "I just went to get you some late-night food. If you don't eat again, you'll end up with a stomachache." He unwrapped the food and placed the bowl in front of me. "Come on, eat." I didn't add scallions. I pursed my lips, slowly slid over to the couch, and picked up the spoon to start eating. The room was quiet. Neither of us spoke. After a while, Lucas let out a light sigh. "Elena, do you really want to divorce me?" I kept my head down. Does it matter what I want? This marriage wasn't meant to be mine in the first place. I'm just an imposter who took someone else's place. Lucas paused for a moment, then spoke more seriously. "Of course it matters. Do you really think I'm the type of person who'd be bound by a marriage contract? I chose you because of you, not your family. Even if we divorced, I wouldn't marry Alice. That so-called engagement is meaningless if I don't agree to it. Do you understand?" In that moment, my mind went completely blank. I gripped the spoon, unsure how to react. Lucas leaned slightly forward on the couch, looking at me with a mixture of apprehension and tenderness in his eyes. The way he looked at me, it was as if I were something precious. And then suddenly, my tears wouldn't stop. I shook my head furiously. "I don't want to." But she's forcing me to. She said I stole her engagement. I don't want to owe her anything. Lucas exhaled in relief and pulled me into his arms. You don't owe anyone anything. I'll take care of it. As for the divorce, pretend I never heard that. Don't bring it up again. Chapter 9. I woke up the next morning in Lucas's arms. Even after we got married, it was rare for us to sleep while holding each other. Most of the time, we kept to our own sides of the bed. So I still wasn't used to it. I tried to quietly move away, but as soon as I shifted, Lucas pulled me back. His voice was low and raspy. Awake? He looked at me and chuckled. Your eyes are so swollen, they look like eggs. I didn't even know what got into me last night. I cried so much I forgot to ask what really mattered. Now didn't seem like a great time either, but I couldn't hold it in. Turning my head, I asked in a small voice. Yesterday. I saw you with Alice. You two looked so happy talking. You've never smiled at me like that, you're always cold. Lucas paused. When? I gave him a clue. Second floor. Balcony. He laughed. So that's why you ran away. After the talk with the madam yesterday, I had planned to find Lucas and talk things through. If he didn't love me, I would accept a divorce. But if he wanted to stay with me, I could find another way to repay my adoptive parents. But when I saw him with Alice, how perfect they looked together, I backed out. I know I'm not the most likable person. I'm indecisive and awkward. And I was so scared of hearing another rejection. I've heard too many lately. My biological parents abandoned me. My adoptive parents looked down on me. No matter what I do, I'm never enough. If Lucas rejected me too, I would have felt completely worthless. So I decided to be the one to push him away. That way, I wouldn't be the one who got left behind. But I didn't want to tell Lucas that. He sighed. I didn't want to smile either, but she called me brother-in-law. What? Yesterday, after arguing with your family, I was planning to take you home. On the way, I bumped into Alice on the second-floor balcony. She saw me and called me brother-in-law. Then she asked what kind of requirements your company had. She wants to be a comedy influencer. I thought it was weird you suddenly left. I figured maybe your family upset you. Didn't expect it was because someone was jealous. His teasing tone made my face burn. I buried myself under the blanket. Even if I had been dense before, now I understood, Lucas had feelings for me too. I peeked out again. Lucas, why were you always so cold to me before? I thought you didn't like me. Lucas was silent for a while, then rested his chin on top of my head. I thought, you didn't want me to. Before we got married, I heard you were refusing the engagement. And after we married, you'd avoid eye contact every time we met. I was afraid you'd hate me even more. Back when the marriage was arranged, I did resist for a while. But it wasn't because I didn't want to marry Lucas. It was because the madam demanded I have a child in the first year. I always knew I wouldn't get the chance to fall in love freely. So really, whoever I married didn't make much of a difference. And Lucas, he had good looks and character. I wasn't against marrying him. I reached out and hugged him. Then, don't be so cold to me anymore, okay? Tell me you like me more often. If you don't say it, I'll think you don't. Okay. After that, talk of divorce completely stopped. My adoptive parents didn't bring it up again. And the chaos caused by the truth about our identities seemed to blow over. Though recently, I heard Alice had quite the meltdown at home. Chapter 10. After the welcome back banquet, I never returned home or contacted my family again. Later, I heard through the grapevine that Alice ran away from home and the madam was so furious she ended up in the hospital. I didn't pay much attention. One day, I was in a meeting at the company when I suddenly got a call from Alice. Hey sis, are you free to come bail me out at the police station? From the sound of her voice, I thought something serious had happened, so I rushed there, only to find her squatting with a group of punks with dyed hair. The police explained what had happened. Alice had gone to buy a street-side pancake and just then, some guys tried to extort an old lady vendor for protection money. Alice grabbed a chair and got into a fight with them. 1 against 3. She got pretty banged up, but those punks didn't get off easy either. After I got her out, we stopped by a pharmacy and I treated her wounds in the backseat of my car. Next time, call the police. Don't get into fights, it's too dangerous. Alice just shrugged, unconcerned. I'm not saying I'm a badass or anything, but those 3 skinny mutts? Please. I've fought worse. I paused mid-motion, about to say something when she suddenly clamped a hand over my mouth. Stop right there. Don't apologize. It's not your fault we were switched at birth. Blame those nutjobs who can't even recognize their own kid. I'm already kinda regretting coming home. Too many damn rules. Can't do this, can't do that. I even got scolded for eating street food. And now they're trying to emotionally manipulate me. They never raised me a day in their lives, but the second I showed up they wanted to marry me off, to my brother-in-law no less. I swear, even feudal society wasn't this twisted. Is this how all rich families operate? I actually feel bad for you. All these years living my rich girl life, you weren't enjoying it, you were suffering in my place. No way I could have handled it. Once Alice started talking, she just wouldn't stop. I couldn't even get a word in. Then I suddenly remembered what Lucas said, that she wanted to become a comedy influencer. Honestly, she might just have the talent for it. After I finished dressing her wounds, I asked where she wanted to go. Was she heading back home? Alice shook her head like a rattle drum. Nope. No way. That place is suffocating. They first tried to marry me off to your husband. When that didn't work, they tried to set me up with someone else. I'm still in grad school, and all they see me as is a bargaining chip for alliances. I refused, so they cut off my cards. So annoying. If I had known, I would have maxed them out first. Total waste. She scratched her head in frustration. Silently, I pulled out a card and handed it to her. Alice blinked, then snatched it with a shout. Sis, you're the best. Even though you're only a few days older than me, you'll always be my big sister. I mean it. And don't listen to any of their manipulative crap. Everyone in my dorm worships you. We love the influencers signed to your company. Your sense of online trends is next level. I wasn't used to being praised so directly. Her words made me feel a bit embarrassed. Oh right, I almost forgot why I came. She rummaged in her bag and pulled out a document, a 5% share transfer agreement for the family company. Mom and Dad told me to give this to you. They said you'll always be their daughter. At first, they tried to force you into a divorce. But now that you and Lucas are clearly inseparable, they want to win you back. Gross tactics, sure, but the money is real, so you'd better take it. Seriously. Don't refuse. Oh, and by the way, Lucas really is handsome. The other day I overheard him yelling at them, saying if they dared mess with you again, he'd pull his investment. I totally fangirled over it. I took the document from her, thought for a moment, and accepted it. Chapter 11. Ever since Alice ran away from home, she's been living with us. At first, Lucas was quite flattered when she called him brother-in-law, but when he saw how she constantly followed me around, he gradually started getting jealous. That night, I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom when Lucas suddenly came up behind me. You're not sleeping with her tonight. Right after he said that, Alice knocked on the door. Sis, are you ready? I've got the movie set up. I'm waiting for you in my room. Lucas, he gritted his teeth. You're not going. I laughed and pushed him away, slipping into Alice's room. We had planned to watch a horror movie together. Eventually, Lucas couldn't take it anymore. He bought Alice an apartment near her university and even had a small private theater installed. He ordered her to live in her own place from now on and stop coming over every few days. Now that she had her own place, Alice completely stopped going back to her adoptive family's home. At first, her adoptive parents tried to discipline her using the same rigid methods they used on me. But when they realized it didn't work on her, they switched tactics and tried to soften their approach. Lately, the lady of the house has been contacting me frequently, constantly praising how well-behaved and thoughtful I was growing up, even acknowledging the success of my company. Words I once longed to hear but never did, now they say them so often they're practically worn out. I'm usually too busy, so I just put the phone on speaker and leave it on the side. I'm grateful for the years they raised me and I'll fulfill my duty as a daughter. But beyond that, there's nothing more. Chapter 12. On our 4th wedding anniversary, Lucas and I went to a tropical island for vacation. Alice, now pursuing a PhD in the US, called me via video from across the ocean. Lucas instantly declined the call. 8 times a day, is she serious? Does she not realize you're married? I couldn't help laughing. What's gotten into you lately? You're acting more childish by the day. Jealous of everything. A few days ago, I had a business meeting and ran into Oliver, a guy I had a mild flirtation with during college. Lucas had been away on a business trip, but when he found out, he flew back overnight. Back then, I was drawn to Oliver simply because my life felt stifling and he knew how to make me laugh. But later I discovered he was flirting with me while still having a girlfriend, so I cut all ties immediately. Honestly, I had almost forgotten the whole thing, no idea how Lucas even found out. That night, he kept me in bed till dawn. I was practically falling apart afterward. Being jealous of Oliver was one thing, but now he was even jealous of Alice. Lucas, why didn't I realize you were this jealous before? Lucas smiled, a deep and meaningful look in his eyes. I've always been a petty guy. Didn't you know? I practically grew up drowning in jealousy over you. I thought he was joking, but his expression said otherwise. A light bulb went off in my head. I tugged on his sleeve and asked, Lucas, when did you start liking me? He hung up Alice's call again, then turned off my phone entirely. He picked me up and carried me to the bedroom. That's a long story. And tonight, we've got all the time in the world. I'll tell you everything slowly. The floor-to-ceiling windows weren't fully closed. The night breeze swept across the sea, drifted onto the beach, and finally slipped into the room, fluttering the sheer curtains noisily. The salty air quickly filled the space. That night, the stars sparkled brightly. Soft. Endless. Full of light. Chapter 13 Extra, Third-Person Perspective. When did Lucas start liking Elena? It had been a long time. So long that even Lucas himself could barely remember. He only remembered that at first, he actually found her a little annoying. Elena cried a lot when she was little, scolded, she cried. Fell down, she cried. Doing homework, cried. Even playing piano, tears. Every time Lucas saw her, her eyes were red and puffy. It was irritating just to look at. He couldn't understand how someone could have so many tears to shed every single day. And yet, Elena was somehow very likable. She'd been pretty since childhood, fair-skinned, delicate, and she always shared her snacks willingly. Whenever Lucas saw her surrounded by a group of kids, he'd feel even more annoyed. Too noisy, he thought. In middle school, Lucas and Elena were in the same class, but they probably didn't speak more than 10 sentences in total. One reason was their seating arrangement. Lucas had grown tall early, so he always sat in the last row. Elena, on the other hand, developed late and was shorter than most kids her age, a permanent resident of the front rows. So usually, Lucas sat in the back, watching Elena joke around with others every day. She laughed at everything. Even the dumbest jokes from the boys would send her into fits of laughter. Lucas didn't get it. What was so funny? Childish. Later in high school, they were no longer in the same class, not even on the same floor. Lucas didn't see her as often anymore. But the few times he did run into her, Elena would walk with her head down. She didn't cry. She didn't laugh either. She looked like a puppet. Every time Lucas saw her like that, he'd be in a bad mood the whole day. Was she in love or something? He'd seen enough TV shows to know, girls who looked like that had usually just gone through a breakup. But that mystery was soon solved. Elena hadn't fallen out of love. She was simply suffocating under her family's strict control. One rainy day, Lucas had just finished playing basketball at the gym when he saw Elena standing in the corridor staring blankly ahead. He'd wanted to just walk past and ignore her. But as he did, she tugged on the corner of his school uniform. She looked at him and said, "Lucas, can you help save that cat?" Lucas was surprised. She knew who he was. But back then, Lucas was going through a bit of a rebellious phase, the kind where boys think they're too cool for everything. He answered gruffly, "Why don't you save it yourself?" Elena shrank back a little and mumbled, "If I get my uniform dirty, I'll be punished." At the time, Lucas thought she was just making excuses. Still, he found some cardboard and made a little shelter for the kitten. Only later did he truly understand. It was during winter break. Lucas had already finished his homework and was spending his days playing outside. One night, coming home late, he happened to pass by Elena's house and saw her bedroom light still on. Her silhouette danced behind the frosted window, graceful as a swan, leaping, twirling. She was practicing ballet. And crying as she did. Lucas later learned that Elena had taken second place in a ballet competition. Because of that, her parents banned her from going out all winter break. She was locked in, practicing every day. He suddenly remembered that rainy day, how Elena had looked down and said, "If I get my uniform dirty, I'll be punished." From that moment on, Lucas thought, that family is messed up. And from that moment on, his eyes started lingering on Elena more and more. Sometimes, he'd even create accidental encounters. But her suffocating upbringing left no room for joy. He rarely saw her smile anymore. Her head hung lower and lower. She was clearly unhappy. As she grew up, Elena only became more beautiful. But she always seemed drained of emotion. Even so, she never lacked admirers. Some were persistent, constantly slipping her love letters. Whenever Lucas saw this, he'd secretly throw the letters away. If her family ever saw those love notes, there would be chaos. Elena never knew any of this. Lucas did follow Elena around for 2 years with love letters, even warning off overly aggressive suitors. He'd leave warm milk in her desk drawer during her period. He didn't really understand why he did it. He always acted before he could figure it out. After high school, Lucas and Elena attended different universities, but they were still in the same city. It wasn't a big city, but their paths rarely crossed. Lucas only found out she might be in a relationship through a mutual friend. That same day, he went to her campus, and by sheer bad luck, ran into her ambiguous boyfriend on a date with another woman. Lucas beat the guy up, forced him to confess, and then Elena broke things off. He heard she was heartbroken for a long time. Even cried a few times. Lucas was annoyed. She liked that scumbag? What awful taste. After graduation, Lucas's family started arranging marriage candidates for him. He hated the idea. He had always despised being told what to do. Then one day, at a banquet, he saw the woman being offered to him was Elena. Well, that wasn't so bad. After all, she wasn't happy at home either. He hadn't expected her reaction to be so intense though. She made a huge scene, refusing the marriage. Lucas thought maybe she hated him. Or maybe she still hadn't gotten over that jerk. But either way, the marriage was going to happen. He saw it clearly. If it wasn't him, it would just be someone else. Her family was never going to let her fall in love freely. So if that's how it had to be, it might as well be him. At least he wouldn't control her with rules. He wouldn't make her suffer. After the wedding, Lucas was always flying out for work. He barely stayed home. Even in bed, he kept things restrained. He thought that as long as Elena was comfortable, maybe their marriage could last longer. Lucas had thought about confessing. But Elena was timid, raised under strict rules for so long. If she found out he had a crush on her, she'd definitely panic. Knowing her, she probably wouldn't even know how to face him anymore. So Lucas thought, forget it. It wasn't that important. As long as she could be comfortable and happy. That was enough. This peaceful marriage lasted for 3 years and slowly, Elena began to change. She started to break away from her family, found a job she liked and was good at, and no longer walked around with her head down. When her adoptive parents made requests, she stopped saying yes to everything. Even their relationship started to warm up. When Lucas returned from trips, Elena would sometimes pick him up. A pair of couples' slippers appeared in their home for the first time. Sometimes, when they were close, Elena would hook her arms around his neck and ask if he could stay home more. Lucas felt secretly thrilled. He thought, oh, finally, the clouds were clearing. But then, in the middle of a business trip, he got a divorce agreement from Elena. It was so sudden, Lucas was stunned. Later he found out, her family had gotten into serious trouble again. He knew they were pressuring her again. Furious, Lucas tried to message and call her, but didn't even know what to say. The 2 short messages she sent just irritated him even more. He deleted them without replying. That very day, he rushed home. Good thing he made it back in time. Otherwise, he'd have lost his wife.